Have you ever heard of an old PC game called The Theater? Yeah, I didn't think so. Probably because many people say it doesn't even exist. You see, The Theater is an old computer game released around the same time as Doom. Today, if you ever find it, it's only available on crappy bootleg CD-ROMs, which more often than not don't even actually contain the game itself. The actual legit copies that they say were released back in the day feature a blank cover with nothing but the sprite of what has since been named the Ticket Taker. He is simply a poorly drawn, pixelated coulson, bald man with large red lips, wearing a red vest over a white shirt and black pants. He is completely emotionless, though some say that if you smash the disc, his face is shown as angry the next time you look at the cover, but this is just an urban myth. What is peculiar about the theater, though, is that there is no developer name on the jewel case, nor a game description on the back. It's simply the ticket taker on a white backdrop on both sides. The game was initially known for its inability to install correctly. The installation process immediately locks up the computer when the user reaches the licensing agreement. What's so strange about the licensing agreement for the theater is that whenever the development studio is supposed to be named, the text is simply a black line. Anyways, most people who have claimed to own one of the original CDs say that they figured out how to install the game by simply rebooting their computer on the licensing agreement with the disc still inside. Then they are prompted to say, "I agree" on startup. Then they continue with the installation. The game then starts up without any introduction besides a main menu. There's simply the sprite of a movie theater exterior on an empty city street. The title fades in and the three menu buttons pop up. New game, load, and options. Selecting options immediately crashes the game to the desktop. Load is said not to function at all, and even if you have a saved game, nothing happens when you press it. Thus, new game is the only working menu option. Once it is selected, you are in the first person view. You are standing in an empty movie theater lobby, with the exception of the ticket taker standing in front of a dark hallway, which one can only assume leads to the theaters themselves. There's nothing to do but look at the poorly drawn, mostly ineligible movie posters, or approach the ticket taker. Once the player moves towards the ticket taker, a very low quality sound clip plays saying,
"Thank you. Please, enjoy the movie,"
along with the speech box saying the same thing. You then walk into the hallway, and the screen fades to black, and you're in the back of the empty lobby, and you do the exact thing again and again and again. While this may sound like a really horrible game, a number of peculiar things have occurred as you continue to play it. The number of times that you have to continue into the hall after giving your ticket to the ticket taker before the strange events occur is unknown. Most state that it's completely random and could take anywhere from just the first playthrough to the 400th playthrough. What happens though has deeply disturbed some players. First occurrence is when the player fades back in after walking into the hallway. This time they will notice the ticket taker is completely absent. The player then, without any other options, decides to walk into the dark hallway. The sound clip and text box mentioned previously still play in the absence of the ticket taker, but when the player walks into the hallway, the screen does not fade out. It goes pitch black as they walk deeper into the hall, but the player's footsteps sound clip is still playing as they continue to push the up button on their keyboard. Those claiming to have played the original game report to have felt extremely uncomfortable walking down the hallway, anticipating the whole way something horrible happening. Well, eventually the player is unable to move forward. There is nothing for a few moments before a strange sprite that is described as the ticket taker, but with a swirl for a face, appears and stands before the player. The original players of the game say their bodies immediately froze up and their stomachs turned when they saw this sprite, which has been appropriately named the Swirly Head Man. Nothing happens as the swirly head man stands before them, then suddenly a piercing screech plays as the game glitches out. This lasts for a few minutes with the screeching being continuous. Then the players abruptly return to the lobby with all the sounds and graphics being as they should be, almost as if nothing ever happened. The game continues normally for the next couple of cycles of entering the hallway, with a couple of the original players claiming the swirly head man would briefly appear and disappear in the corner of the screen as a brisk of yelp sound effects plays. Then at some point after meeting the swirly head man, the player sees the ticket taker pacing back and forth. Though there is no walking animation, the sprite's limbs are completely static, so he just hops around up and down slightly as a substitute, with his eyes being wide and his mouth open to simulate a worried facial expression. Some players also notice that the movie posters have been replaced with images of the swirly head man, which cause them to immediately turn their character's head away from the posters and approach the ticket taker. Then another different low quality sound clip plays, but the speech box contains nothing but corrupted characters that cause whatever the text that would be in the box to completely be illegible. Due to the extreme low quality of the sound, it is debated by the players what exactly the ticket takers say at this point, though it is widely agreed that he says, "Never reach the other levels." And the screen fades out once again and returns the player back to their normal starting point in the lobby. But the ticket taker is gone and the halfway is blocked by a large brick wall sprite. Touching the brick wall will immediately crash the game, and that's all there is to it. No one knows what the other levels are or how to gain access to them, nor is it known why the swirly head man causes such acute fear in those who have seen him in the game. All the original copies of the theater have been either lost or destroyed. But the creepiest part is the fact that all the original players of the game claim to occasionally see a brief glimpse of the swirly head man out of the corner of their eyes. Well, not a bad story indeed. And, not to mention, this is the first gaming creepypasta on the channel, so yeah, this definitely says a lot compared to the others. The thing that I love about this story is the fact that it's not like the other gaming creepypastas where, it breaks the fourth wall and it starts to include pictures of, the character's family and, mutilated ways, or it just starts, talking to the player. No, it doesn't do any of that. Not to mention, no blood or gore in this. We don't see the ticket taker, ripping out the player's guts or any of that. Also, not to mention, is this story is practically original. There's no established characters used, no, there was no Mario or Sonic in any of the movie posters, or the ticket taker dancing on Sonic's dead corpse, none of that. And not to mention, also, the story doesn't, go over the top. It talks about, how it talks about a bit of its history and the effect it has on players, and how this game is practically unfinished. If you really think about it, if you just look at the story bare bones, it's basically just describing an unfinished game that was never released or was halfway into development and was canceled for no reasons. One thing I do want to mention though is that I know there is a sequel of the story out there. I haven't read it yet, so that last part, could be true, could be not. The sequel could explain that, this was a canceled game and that it was canceled either because of Doom or it was just being made around the same time of Doom. So, yeah. The thing that adds to the story is the fact that it was being, like it said, it was being created around Doom. Around Doom, there was, sort of the creation of 3D games, or more so they were in their infancy, they weren't perfected. So, really, it works with the time frame. It doesn't do impossible things, game breaking or paranormal things. No, it just, hey, the ticket taker bounces back and forth instead of walking back and forth like it should be. Some of the menu options don't work. There is a couple screen glitches, and that's about it. And it just begs the question: was this game really released that way, or was it intentional, or was there a reason as to why they stopped making it? It leaves so many questions towards the end, which I'm hoping that the sequel does answer a bit. Not all of them, but just, enough. it just makes for a really good story, and not to mention a good campfire story to tell. You know, that there was a canceled game or a lost game out there that is very hard to play. And that's what I like about this story, that it presents itself as a possibility of reality without being too over the top that makes you roll your eyes and say, you know, this is clearly fake. Heck, even when I heard this story, you know, I thought it was real. I thought it was a real story, or a real game, I should say. And actually, speaking of real game, there are many fan games out there of this that have tried to, you know, recreate this game. There is one. There's actually, I know for a fact there are 3 versions. There's one where it is very faithful to the story, you know, with the whole, you know, 3D Doom style, and then there's another one where it's more with, I guess, sort of pictures. How to say? I am not sure, but it's definitely one of my favorite ones. As with that one, there's a bit of more mystery to it. Instead of focusing on the creepypasta, it's more of a, you know, I guess in universe. It's basically its own separate thing with some elements of the creepypasta. And then the third one is more out there. It has some elements of the creepypasta, but there's a lot of stuff that, you know, kind of separated away. You know, I do recommend checking out these games. They, you know, I played the first version, which is, you know, pretty fun, but the other ones I have not played, so I still recommend playing those games. But anyways, with that being said, I recommend checking out this story along with its sequel, which I might read on this channel if it's good anyways. And one thing I do want to emphasize is that I'm only going to be trying reading good stories, so no shitty ones on here. Or at least not all of them, but a good chunk of them I'll make sure that they're good. Anyways, with that being said, thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to check out all my other social media, and dislike the video if you dislike it, or like the video if you enjoyed it. And with that being said, I am out.